So just to start off with where I stopped last meeting. So we went in depth about the band of servers and what are the aspects that determine our rebirth, reincarnation, and in what order that the place and the time of our rebirth is chosen. So those things we have already gone through in depth. So I hope everybody remembers. So in this session, I would like to jump right into some of the examples that we are considering. As I said, in this book, we have about down at everybody in Zoom is able to hear, right?
You can bring it out a little bit now. Okay.
Is it okay?
Because it will pop it.
Is it okay now? No. Hello? Okay, yeah. Okay. So Jamshed, you're able to hear, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
I see him nodding. Yes, yeah. Some of the examples that we'll be considering, again, this book is entirely about laying out these lifetimes, right? So 48 lifetimes, complete details of every minute details of what happens in that lifetime and how those causes create the effect for the next lifetimes, and how the characteristics that are personalities that we are taking as example, how they react in each of these situations, and how the trajectory of their rest of their lives depends upon these actions that they take in the previous lifetimes. So this kind of gives a picture and kind of imagination we can kind of create for our own lives. Something we are going through, which is pleasant or unpleasant, is directly caused by our own actions. That's what Krishna says in completely in Bhagavad Gita. It's like completely whatever your life is throwing at you, the way your life is designed, it's not me. You are the designer of your own life. It's all the actions that you have performed in your past life is directly responsible for what you are facing situations today. So I am just an indifferent observer. I want you to go on the right path, but I'm going to give you the situations for it, but I'm not going to be writing your future. It's what you write for yourself with your actions is what is going to determine your life. So to what do you say, understand this much deeper, I think Anipesan and Ledbetter put a lot of effort in clairvoyantly observing something which happened as far as 100,000 years back, and kind of giving us these examples in detail to lay out the life of one soul along with a few other souls which are associated with it, and then kind of make us understand the importance of our actions today, which leads to the causes and effects that we set in motions for many lifetimes to come. So as I mentioned earlier, what you can see is we started somewhere around 75,000 years ago, and we kind of are going backwards, coming to like 2,000 years from today, like backwards. Okay, the first lifetime we already discussed. This is the very first time, which is like 70,000 years ago, when first time we see Alkani, what's the soul name of J. Krishnamurti, being born. And here you see that he's a son of Mars and Mercury. And again, quiz time, who is Mars, who's Mercury? And Master Maurya, yes. And you can see he's also has 5 other sons, who's Jupiter, Corona, Mars, and Vajra. And here, mostly the work here has started to set up the root race, the 5th root race and the 1st sub race. And the length of the life is 40, and I already said how to read the chart here. It's the life, the place of birth is around Gobi Sea. During this lifetime, you can see that the masters are training these souls to create the island which is about to come up near the Gobi Sea, which is a white island, and they kind of consecrate the spaces because every morning they have to walk like a couple of miles together, in a form of like a half semicircle form, like a form of a wheel or a chakra. This city is yet to be established, like 2,000 years later, but the process has already started. So the masters, under the direct tutelage of the masters, Alchemy, Sirius, Mizar, Heracles, everybody are in small souls, like developing souls back then, and they are working closely. So we have already gone into depth of that in the last class, so I'm going to skip to the next lifetime, which is the second one. Anybody has any doubts that you want to ask? I know some of you approached me with some doubts that they had. Do you want to pop the questions now or later? Okay. You continue with the talk, and maybe in between you can feel free to stop me. And okay, did we discuss second lifetime? Anybody remember? Okay. I think I did, so I'm just, yeah, we did, right? Yeah. I think we can start from third lifetime here. Okay. The third lifetime is now 60,000 BC, that is 60,000 years before. And here, Alchemy is born as a male in Manoa. Manoa is again the city I said near the Gobi Sea. The length of the lifetime is 92. Root race is the 5th root race and the 1st sub race. Now, by that time, the 2nd and the 3rd sub races are not into picture, so it's just the establishment of the 5th root race. The seed process has started. Now we can see Manu is in incarnation here, and he has Jupiter, who is a daughter, and Mars is a Toltec prince, which he gets married to his own daughter, Jupiter. Now, the reason here is he wants to bring in some of the 4th root race blood in there. That means they use, the way the masters are, it's laid out in the book is, the way the plan works is you pick up the 5th or the 6th sub-race people from the 4th root race. So there are going to be 7 sub-races within the root race, right? So in the 4th root race, there will be 7 sub-races, and the 7 sub-race people are going to be used to build the 5th root race. Like it's not like completely changing, but then a few aspects will be changed, and that change is brought about by Manu incarnating himself. So whenever you see the Manu is incarnating or taking birth in a physical life, that means he's bringing in those new qualities. He's going to marry somebody from the 4th root race, 6th or 7th sub-race, and then he's going to have kids, and those kids are going to marry within that same tribe, not to marry back again into the 4th root race people. So that's how he keeps his tribe together or isolated from other subgroups, so that he can create the bodies. When we think about, when we are talking here about bodies here, it's not just physical body, it's also the causal body, the astral body, the what do you call, the subtler bodies. The subtler bodies is what he is more working on, making it more sensitized, so that way they can develop, have a form of proper structure, and they can grow accordingly. So the spiritual growth to a certain extent happens at the physical body. At the same time, we need to have or grow or mature our subtler bodies for us to evolve. So that's a process which is happening in the back end. Now, here you can see Manu had 12 children. Each of them had 12 kids each, and each of the grandkids also had 12 children. This pattern is repeated. This is how he's creating the first group of people.
I want to load the mic a little. There you go.
Level?
Thank you.
Okay. This is better?
Yeah. Yeah, there's the weak on the. It's okay.
So, what are the main events that happens here? So once the race was firmly established, the building of this great city, capital of the empire, started, the White Island or the city of Manoa. It took 1,000 years to build it completely and lasted for almost 50,000 years unchanged, until the great catastrophe of the sinking of the Posidonius. Paths which the service has magnetized hundreds of years before were now wide streets. You remember in the first lifetime, which was 70,000 years back, we see that Alkane and his group of servers who had taken birth then used to chant some mantras along with the Manu, and they used to walk every day a certain 10 or 15 kilometers. They used to chant and walk, and they used to magnetize that area. That means they used to sing some invocations for the nature spirits to come there, stay there, and like kind of create this positive energy, because even 1,000 years back, the Manu had already had the plans for establishment of this city. Now, 10,000 years later, the city is in, the building of the city is almost done, and it stays like that for 50,000 years until the catastrophe of sinking of Posidonius, when there was a huge flood and the world map changed considerably after that. Once the great Posidonius and the Atlantis, both these two islands, sunk in the Atlantis, then a greater part of the world which was having a land area which also flooded up, and the new land area was formed. So this is how it changed. So until that point, this area kind of remained. Paths which, okay, city was planned as a spider web design. Alkane lived a life of constant work. Main task was to complete the edifice. He desired to work on the maze of the temple, but was not able to do that. So the way they lay out the design of the temple is, there is a center part where is a main temple, and all through you have spikes or spears like a wheel, and there is main paths leading all through the streets of the city, and the city was laid out in the form of a wheel. And in the center of the city was this big temple, and the temple had a big dome. So in here, this temple was the center of all the ceremonial activities that was taking place. The Manus used to visit there very often. The Kumaras used to come there. Many of the initiations was happening, and people were living there as so-called like nuns and priests, what relative term for today's world. So they had dedicated their life to the service of the masters, and they constantly lived there, and they worked completely whatever the Manu asked them to do, and they were doing it. That was kind of a strict life that they were leading, to take care that they develop a certain set of principles or aspects within their physical body and their astral body, so that they can be reused in giving birth to the next generation of kids. Manu left his body when the time was right, and Alkane took over the work. When Mercury wife dies, he retires, and Mercury is a wife of Alkane here. He retires, and triplets, he had like 3 kids. They take over the charge equally and gave rise to many stories. Like the 3 kids which he had, they were extremely, they were, okay. Let me see if okay, here I say. Twin boys, Mizar and Sirius, and later Electra, together called the Trinity. Now, you can see here, Alkane and Mercury, this is a son of the Manu, and Mercury is his wife in this lifetime. And the twin boys are Mizar, who is Alkane's brother, Nityananda, in this lifetime, and Sirius, is Leadbeater, Charles Leadbeater, and Electra, I said I didn't know. So these three people, they are very close. That means in this whole lifetime, what they do is, now Sirius, Mizar being kind of the head, the firstborn among the twins, he was rightfully to take the place of his father. But it so happened that they didn't want that happening, and they said that no, we are going to rule the country as three kings. And that's how very democratic way of leading life. Like, you know, they all had equal powers, they all were sat on the same throne, and people who visited them, like they used to come from other neighboring tribes, like for kingdoms, you have some diplomatic visits from other countries and kingdoms, right? When they came in, when they saw these three people, they all looked, being twins, they all looked, it seems that they all looked the same too. So many people got confused and they thought in the Aryan race, there are three gods who sit on the same throne, and some kind of story spread across. And it so happened that people started coming in flocks just to see these three, and nobody could differentiate among themselves. So that's how nicely they ruled the country. But it was decided that I think Mizar's son to take over once their term was over. So this kind of, if you want to read the chapter, there's a bunch of good stories which go along with this rule, but I'll skip to that part right now. So that's the main points of that lifetime, life 3. Now, yeah.
I have a question. You put on there the length of life. The previous one was 92. This one is 84. Whose life is that?
Oh, that is just Alkani's life. Yeah. Here, when we speak of that point there, we are speaking in terms of only Alkani's life. There are other souls which are incarnating, but this is written in perspective of J. Krishnamurti's life. So when I say he's born as a male, then that is only just to his life. And it might be that Sirius and Leadbeater, Anubis, and many other people keep taking birth along with him, but it's not written from their point of view. Okay. Life 4, and this was 42,000 years ago. To give a visualization, we are somewhere here, the 42,000 years ago. So the first one we saw 75, 70, 60,000, and 42. As I mentioned, the first 6 lifetimes are not in chronological order, and there will be many small incarnations which had happened in between, but they didn't go in deep into writing about it because there's not much significant activities happening. They might have been incarnated as individual souls for their own karmic purposes. And the first 6 or 7 lifetimes is picked up based on where all these band of service, like all the society people that we are associated with, we come to know of, when they all incarnated together, that's the life we are kind of focusing right now. So what happened 42,000 years ago? Let's take a look. No, not this one. Okay, you can see the family chart here. Now, this is not a complete chart. The complete chart should be referred into the book. It was too big to put it up here. But I just kind of picked up a few highlights of this birth. So Alkane is married to Perseus, Mizar to Denab, death due to childbirth. And then what happens is Mizar marries Electra. Pearl due to, Electra is like, you know, they kind of plan to marry each other, but then for circumstances they couldn't marry each other and they marry somebody else. And then their respective spouses die and they get back and marry each other, and they raise all the kids together. So Palas and Vajra, several of the current masters took birth in that generation: Surya, Mars, Mercury. Manu took birth as son of Mars and Mercury and married Koli, grandchild of Algoni. That is kind of a very highlight of the family structure there, or family hierarchy. Okay, what was the main things that happened in this lifetime? Corona was asked to move to a valley interior of the Gobi Sea, start a new subset of people, clear the forest and create settlements. Now you see, this is a very important aspect that we see recurring again and again. So whenever a certain group of people reach to a certain level of development and the Manu thinks that, okay, this level is done, I want them to improve. Like, say we are creating a cell phones, you have version 1, version 2, version 3, or we every 6 to 7 months the companies release the patches, right, upgrades, because there was some defect here and there was some loopholes here and something was getting through, strengthen the firewall, whatever it is. So as and when it is deemed necessary, some patches are released and the version of the software gets upgraded. So that's exactly how the Manu works with creating these root traces and subraces. So the first set of people for the fifth subrace was almost ready, or he thought, okay, these people have reached a certain level of development. Now he wanted to create a subset among them who would again be isolated and create a new area. So he asked Karuna to move into interior valley of the Gobi Sea, start a new subset of people, clear the forest and create settlements. Now the main challenge that comes back then was to isolate people. It's not as easy as today. Like, you board a plane, you board a ship, go to some other city, start living there. Because most of the land was not inhabited, it was forest. Highest challenge we see is how to create settlements. That means you have to, there was a lot of labor work involved in cutting down the trees, planning the city, and there's extensive details about how this was done about. And apart from this, there's always a fear of the fourth root race people or Turians or Toltecs, Acadians. Sometimes they come and attack these people and they want to capture the settlements. Once they have created the farmlands, they have a livestock, they come to steal, attack, and the whole hard work of 5 to 10 years is just gone like that. So the next step was to, inhabit people over there. These people acted as pioneers for starting of the second subrace of the fifth root race, the Arabia. Each were given an area to supervise, Alchemy. He acts as an environment and city planning with parks. Even back then, they say that Alchemy was always not very happy with clearing the forest completely. So he exhibits exceptional skill in incorporating plants and trees within the city limits by creating parks. So it is written in the book that this was the first time somebody actually thought of having small areas for children to play within the cities, which is today we call parks and recreational areas, with lots of trees where children are still exposed to the nature. And back then, even though the forest was close by, kids couldn't go there because of the danger of somebody being attacked, and they used to kidnap kids and kill the kids. Kids were stolen from one tribe and sacrificed to God. So all these things happening in the background. So that's where he comes up with the idea of incorporating the city plans, creating such that there is parks within the city where kids have their time and place to play. Manu takes birth as grandnephew of Alkuni and leads the subrace forward. Though this band of servants is retained by the Manu for the work of a certain time, its members are by no means always engaged in that work, for good reason that it needs doing work only at intervals. That's what I mentioned earlier. That means only when they are needed to do the work that they incarnate together, otherwise they can be incarnated elsewhere. Most of the karma of its members is necessarily generated with their fellows and therefore tends to work itself out within the group and to make the tie stronger between the comrades so that they may get to know one another thoroughly and learn to work together. This was the other aspect, right? So as much as they are close, at this age, they are still developing souls, so that they needed more time to bond together, adjust to each other's weaknesses and strengths, accept one another, so that in future generations when they are born together, there is not much conflict and they are able to focus and work as a team to deliver the Manu's goals rather than fighting among themselves to be superior or put somebody else down and they didn't want a dysfunctional team. So whenever they incarnated, they wanted a functional team. So they gave more time to work together and get to know each other and be able to live with each other without killing each other, which they do, but still.
What is create settlements?
Create settlements meaning, it's a difficult term for us who's been born in this day and age to understand that. So say for example, back in the old days, imagine back in the old days, you're living in a village, right? So you all are under the control of the Manu, and you are or maybe there is 4 or 5 villages controlled by the Manu. Now he wants to create a new group of people, and he doesn't want those new people to be marrying or having any relationship with his old people, because he doesn't want that gene type or gene pool. He wants to create a new gene pool, right? So what does he do? He says, okay, I have to incarnate, but he cannot incarnate by himself, like, out of the mud, he cannot raise. But he needs people to take birth with them. So what he does is he picks few people from these 5 or 10 villages that he's managing, he sends them away. He sends them away into 100 kilometers away. You go, there is a valley there, you settle there. Settle meaning if you go to a new valley, it's thick forest. What do you need to settle there? First you need a house, then you need farmlands, which is forest. So you first have to cut down the trees, level the land, till the land, then start growing crops there. And then you have to bring some livestock, like cattle, sheep, chicken, whatever, to sustain. Then you need to start growing, farming, agriculture. And then with that, you also have to build houses, new houses. So these are the work which mostly men could do, because it's a hard labor work. So whenever a new settlement was planned by the Manu, the way he works is he selects few men, 100 to 1,000 abled men, and he gives them the instructions to go there, work for 1 or 2 years, create this setup. First create a village, like water supply. First you have to look at the water supply too. Is the water close by? If there is no water, how are you going to bring the water from the close by river? So all those things, they do the hard work 1 or 2, 3 years, 2 to 3 years, and then he sends the women and children to go live there. So that's creating a new settlement. Now once such settlements is created, the Manu always directs them not to marry with anybody outside that tribe, or to come back and marry with people here. Why? Because he's going to incarnate there, and he's going to create a new prototype body. So that's what he did. He has 12 sons, each of them have 12 kids again. So back then, having kids was the work of the Manu too. It's now we think of oh, I don't want any materialistic life, I don't want to be in the family bonding, I'm just going to go to the forest and do some meditation and become a yogi and get nirvana. That, as much as that is okay, it was not okay from the point of the Manu. Because for the Manu to continue the generation of people, people having a normal family life was also as much important. Having kids and raising kids properly, teaching them hygiene, teaching them how to live, giving them morals and values, that also was part of the settlement program. That they had to raise them a certain way and kind of create the environment where Manu can come in and continue his work. So that's called a settlement. Yes. Yes. Manu is always the same soul. For the whole of the root race, it's one Manu. So he's going to be taking care of us until the end. So we keep rebirthing, and he's going to plan where we are going to be born, who and how. Again, if we follow the rules, but if we want to fall off the grid and do some things we're not supposed to do, we're going to be going back in class, right? That way. So here, the 4th, 5th root race, there's not much happening here, so I just laid out the overall structure here. Manu planned to march the settled group of people to Arabia. Alkuni and Mizar were to march to Arabia and make peace with the tribes to inform them that the band of people arriving with the Manu. They marched through Persia with no trouble. Chieftain Ursa causes some trouble. There is a big war that happens, and Manu comes himself. He has to fight the tribe and kind of make way for them. Anytime these new settlements are created, now say this settlement was to inhabit people in Arabia, what we call the Arabs now, the Middle East. So that area he wanted to occupy and create the subrace, the second subrace of the fifth root race. So when we think about this cycles, when we talk about the cycles in the last chapters, when we see the solar system thing, we think that, okay, these are just happening just like that. On a click of a button, he's like creating people and destroying people, creating the races and root races. It doesn't work like that. It's a very, very, very slow process. He has to go according to the rules of the evolution. That means evolution cannot be, of course, the Manu with his sankalpa meaning with his intention, he can give rise to a physical body maybe. He can create a physical body, he can create a causal body, he can create an astral body, and maybe he can do 10 hundreds of that with the powers he has. But that's not how it should be done. So the Manu has a strict laws that he has to abide by. So he cannot just create whatever it is, and he cannot force his will on everybody, every soul. So as much as he can create an environment for that soul, he cannot force his will on them. If that soul goes away and kind of wants to get out of the tribe, and is not benefiting that tribe, he lets them go, right? He's like, let them go. They'll come back in later time, but he cannot force his will on anybody to do his work. They have to be, as I mentioned in the first class, they have to be volunteers. They have to be flexible enough so that if somebody says something, I should trust the Manu says, okay, this is not good for you, I suggest you do this or marry this person, don't go out or something. I should be willing to do it. If I say, no, I know better than you, I'm going to do whatever I want, then you're out, right? So that's the first thing that he looks for. Okay. Okay, in the seventh lifetime, yes, I have, from here I'm start skipping a lot of lifetimes because, because then I would take the whole year to complete it if I start giving all the details, and you guys have stopped showing up for the classes next week. So I just picked up where some main activities are happening and some interesting events to keep you all awake and entertained. Okay, where do we see here now? It's 40,000 BC. Alcuin is born as a male in Persia. Length of the life is 81 years. It's the fifth root race and the second subrace. Was that passage in the seventh, or in the? I have two passages, right? Was that the seventh one? Oh, it's here.
What does this say? 10.
10, okay. I just want to make sure I stop at the right time for you. Okay. Here, the Manu was ruling the Manoa again. Preparation for setup of the third subrace in Persia. Now, you see the second subrace is now in the Arabia. So that work is done. Now he has to create the third subrace. So he picks the land as Persia. Manu is married to Mercury here. Two sons, Osiris and Sirius. Sirius is married to Mizar, and son is Alkene. Alkene was a sensitive child, remembered past lives as vivid dreams, able to feel the nature spirits. Heracles, born in the noble Akkadian blood and was introduced into this tribe of people. So what happens is, when the third subrace has to be formed, now as I mentioned, it always has to have some of the fourth root race influence in there too, because there are some features of the fourth root race that he's going to bring over to all the fifth subraces, right? So what he does is Heracles, who's Annie Besant again, now she is born in a different tribe, thousands of miles away. But her nature as a male, his nature there is such that he's very adventurous. That since the day he's born, he's trying to escape from his tribe. No, everybody is like, why is this kid always trying to run away? So he reaches a certain age, teenage age, and there is a wagon of caravans which come around across his tribe selling goods, and he hides in one of his caravans and he escapes. He escapes, and then these people were far away from that tribe and they didn't know what to do with this boy. They were like, okay, fine, you come along with us. So what does he do? On the way, he comes across and he meets this tribe, which is the second subrace. And when he comes into this city, he sees Orion, and who is a son of, sorry, where's Orion? I think Orion is a sister to Sirius and Orisis and Sirius, right? Or maybe he's a son, daughter. No, he's a daughter of, he's a daughter of Sirius. Yeah, he's a daughter of, she's a daughter, Orion is a daughter of Sirius, and Heracles falls in love with her. Now, back in the old days, the Manu's rule was nobody can marry outside the tribe. So Sirius clearly says, no, as good as a person you are, I can't let you marry. So now these two young souls are deeply in love, and like, I have John. Yeah, sorry, thank you. So he's like, heartbroken. Full drama happening. You can read the book, like, they're like, crying and creating a drama, and then all these things are happening. And then Sirius is like, no, we are bound to the Manu, we are not going to let you marry. Now, what does Alkene do? Alkene is like, okay, let me go to my grandfather. Who's the grandfather? Manu. Manu is living on the White Island, right, by this time. So he goes to the Manu and he says, my sister, she's in love with this guy who came from the another tribe, and my dad is not letting her marry. And the Manu already knows. Manu was the one who planned Heracles to escape, and he kind of influenced him to come over here. And he starts laughing, and I was like, oh, I was waiting who was going to come to me asking about this. And he's like, calls his son Sirius, and he's like, no, I made the arrangements. You are supposed to marry him here to your daughter. So they get married, and then in the meantime, what happens? There is this another soul, Gamma. Now, this Gamma is one interesting soul. Wherever you see Gamma, there's trouble. Always against the plan of the Manu, right? So this Gamma is also in love with Orion, right? From childhood. And he wants to marry Orion, who is the son or daughter of Sirius. And he says, no, I am in the community. Why are you bringing somebody from outside the community and getting married to the girl I like? But the Manu and the Sirius have already agreed, and the wedding is going as planned. So what happens? Heracles and Alkene are like, good friends by then. So they are taking a walk in the garden, and this Gamma is hiding there in the garden. What does he do? He tries to attack Heracles and stab him with a knife. But Alkene tries to stop it. He jumps in front, and Alkene gets hurt. And as a turn of events, the Gamma is caught, and then things take a bad turn. Alkene is badly wounded, but anyway, everything turns out to be fine, and he's sent out of the community, like, of the tribe, because of his this work. Now, the next one major event that happens is the Manu lays out the plan for starting the subrace. Sirius with children move to the valley and start the process of settlement. So the next important event happening here is Selene, who is about to marry Vajra, daughter of Alkene, is kidnapped by Deneb again. Now, this Deneb is one other soul who is in love with her, Selene. Now, he takes her away and runs away from the tribe. Now, Deneb is running away, but Alkene with his other few people start chasing him, and they are going outside their circle where they have been living. Now they are completely exposed. They are into the tribes of the fourth root races, who are not very tolerant to this Aryan people, like the fifth root race people. They think that, oh, these Aryans think themselves as superior, they're always looking us down, so whenever you see an Aryan away from their tribe, they try to kill them or sacrifice them for their gods and things like that is always happening. So against the wishes of the community or people, now Alkane sets away looking for his daughter who has been kidnapped. Now in the process, what happens, by the time they reach to the place where this Deneb is hiding Selena, it's a complete Hollywood or a Bollywood plot, okay? You would think that people made up stories here, but this book, the reality is more stories, more fiction than what we see in the movie. Now, this Selena, by the time they are fighting in the outskirts of the city, she's in this remote house, and the person who is guarding has gone on the hill to watch how they are fighting, and she escapes from here. They win the fight, they come back here to take her, now she's gone. She's gone, and there is a cave which has a waterfall, and there is a cave underneath the waterfall. And when she went to take bath when she was under confinement, she found that there is a cave. She goes and she hides inside the cave. And her father and brothers are here now, and everybody is taken care of, but she's nowhere to be found. So they go around looking here, and finally they come across, in that cave was an old fourth root race people who were hiding, who were bad spirits actually, so-called ghosts or black magic people, that they kind of try to harm her. Because she's just voluntarily walked into a cave which was inhabited by bad souls. Now when Alkane and they come looking for it, somehow they figure out that she might be over there, and they go over there, and the big fight again ensues. And all the things, drama happen, which I'm going to skip for now. And then anyway, she's brought back. After she's brought back, everything is fine, and things go on smoothly. But why I wanted to point that out is, as much as we think our actions don't matter, every small thing, actions does matter for the Manu. If he comes up with this plan, and you see these characters doing things which they're not supposed to be doing, some unnecessary character is introduced, and they create the problem of kidnapping this girl outside the fifth root race and then going into a cave, which is again, she's exposing herself, and it gets delayed. The plans get delayed by hundreds of years. So this is interesting to observe how we interfere in our own growth and development. And that's why I think a lot of emphasis is placed on the ignorance of people. Like when we are ignorant of what our path is, we get deviated from all these things happening in the life. So if we can stick to what actually is our evolutionary path and set a goal for ourselves and say, anything that happens, good or bad, it's there, it happens, but we have to stay unwavering from our path and from our goal. Like, say somebody like for instance Gama, right? Yes, he liked the girl, Orion, but she doesn't like him. What should he do? He just like, okay, this is not meant for me for this lifetime, let it go, and he could have gone forward. No, he creates this whole drama. The same with Dainab. Okay, he likes some girl, what is he supposed to do? He's putting the whole other group of people who have incarnated for the work of the master, who's actually doing the right work. He is going to deviate them from actually doing the right work because they have to go and save their daughter now. And they're putting themselves on risk there. So this is how unknowingly these souls create. How does the karma create it? Is not just because the karma of kidnapping a girl, it's also the karma that they incur because they are causing a trouble to the Manu's plan of what's happening on the back end, which not everybody, we might not have a picture in this day-to-day life, but on the bigger picture, it's all part of the evolutionary process. Gama, do we have that cheat sheet? I think some of the negative souls, they have not identified. Gamma and Scorpio. And there is also one Orion. Yeah, Orion, Gamma, and Scorpio. They were such a characteristics that after the first book, volume 1 and volume 2 of J. Krishnamurti's life was written, they wrote a second book just focusing on these three souls. Life of Erasure, Life of Orion, Scorpio. Just because Leadbeater and Besant gave the justification for that too. They said that, see, Alcuin's life was pretty much straightforward. He didn't do anything extraordinarily bad. He didn't do extraordinarily anything that deviated him from his plan, and he had to come back onto the track, because he was a pretty straightforward soul, to say. Easy soul, dedicated, loving, caring, and whatever the masters wanted, he was such a soul. But these three souls, such troublemakers, and they gave their life, laying out their life, we could understand how we can, doing bad karmas influences us. So there's a separate 2 books for just dedicated to those 3 souls. But as far as my knowledge, I didn't understand who those souls are. I think deliberately they didn't say, or I don't know, but they are not listed, I think. Okay, 10th lifetime. What happens here? Mars is the ruler, suns Jupiter, Mercury, Alchemy, and Orion. Surya is the chief priest. Where is this happening? This is again in Persia. By this time, yeah, I'm going to be skipping a lot in between. I'm picking very, very selective ones here, interesting ones. So it is again in Persia. By this time, it's like 500 years after the last incarnation. And it's again in Persia, and by this time the third subrace is kind of established. Sons of Mars are Jupiter, Mercury, Alchemy, and Orion. Surya is the chief priest. This life preparation for the arrival of the Mahaguru in the Persia as the first Zoroastra, right? Zarathustra. Am I pronouncing it correct? Zarathustra. The founding of the religion of fire. If you remember the incarnations of Buddha, he was incarnated as Zarathustra in his previous lifetime, where I think he has 7 or 8 lifetimes that has been laid out by the society literature, where all he incarnated in his previous life, Gautam Buddha. So this was one of his lifetimes. So yeah. Zoroastrian? Yeah, Zoroastrian. What we call today Parsis. Yeah. The Parsis are mostly, see, Zoroastrian was the innate or the native culture religion of Persia, which is today Iran. But it lasted for long time, and it was established by the masters themselves. It is one of the religion, like Buddhism today, it was one of the religions which was established directly by the masters and guided by them. But once the Islamic invaders attacked Persia, I think most of the Zoroastrians were persecuted, or they had to flee their land because of the persecution. And I think they went across and settled across different countries in the Middle East. And most of them, what I understand, is came to India. I think and in India they are called as Parsis, like Persian. I think it comes from the word Persian. And today also there is a big population of Parsis in India, and they follow the Zoroastrian culture. Very peaceful nature, very calm, and they have this, and wasn't Fali and
Yeah, Fali was Zoroastrian.
Zareen, yeah, I think they were Zoroastrians. They all, I think some of them settled in Pakistan, all that belt, they came out. Yeah, there is a yeah, they have a temple. In Adyar too, they have a temple, Zoroastrian temple. I think Annie Besant or Leadbeater, either one of them consecrated that. The temple is very, very peaceful. You just go into that room. I don't know what it is there, but I feel it is so peaceful, so calm. Whenever I visit Adyar, I always make a point to go visit all the temples there. There is a church, there is Zoroastrian, there is a Buddhist temple, and there is a Hindu temple, and there is one more. Anyway, for all the main religions that the Mahaguru himself established or set up, I think there is one mosque too, yeah. And there's a temple there. So that's how my early understanding of that religion was, from that temple which I saw in Adyar, and then I started understanding where that came from. But in this lifetime is when actually the master is coming down and they're setting up that space for his arrival. Mahaguru takes the body of Mercury in a splendid ceremony. Alkene and Orion both had, okay, see here, Mars is a ruler, and his sons are Jupiter, Mercury, Alkene, and Orion. So Mercury is the second son. The arrival of the masters is not always by taking birth as a baby and growing up. So it can be like one of his disciples who is evolved enough will take birth and develop the physical body, and then that body will be used by the master. He's going to kind of donate his body, and that soul is going to come and incorporate into this body and continue the rest of the life giving the preachings. The same thing happened, it is told, I'm just quoting from the Theosophical literature, that's how Jesus incarnated too. So when Jesus was also the Mahaguru, Master Maitreya, Lord Maitreya. Lord Maitreya came down as Jesus, but his body was of Master Brihat. You can see here and there, you can see that cheat sheet I shared with you. Brihat is listed as Master Jesus. But if you talk of Jesus, there is two aspects there. Who was the body of the Jesus and who is the soul of the Jesus? So the body of the Jesus, what we see, who lived 2000 years back, is actually the body of Master Brihat. But the soul which came in as Master Jesus is Lord Maitreya. Oh, they kind of leave the body and go. They kind of donate it. They're gone. Yeah. So that's the sacrifice they make. And that sacrifice gives them a lot. Actually, it is a great, great honor to be even chosen to that, to be doing that. And when you have evolved to that state, you don't really care. You just sacrifice your body is the least thing you can sacrifice for the master to come in here, right? And they have to live a very disciplined life. Like, very disciplined life, like they can't eat whatever junk donuts, right? No candy. You got to do yoga every day. You got to do certain, like, no eating meat or no sleeping whenever you want, no playing video games or things like that. So, I'm just speaking. But anyway, so they live a very religious, disciplined life so that the body is prepared in a certain way so that they can actually come in and incarnate in there. So that's what happens here. Mercury, right from his childhood, his father, Mars, is already made known that your second son, Mercury's body is going to be used for the arrival of the Mahaguru. You have to raise him a certain way. So he's raised accordingly. Okay, now I'm going to take a pause here. And I kind of wanted to skip this part, but as I was reading through, there was a sentence which came up in the book, kind of triggered me. In the book, Leadbeater wrote that, please refer to page 289, whatever, of the a man Whence, How and Whither book, because that ceremony which happened when the master actually takes over the body is written by Annie Besant. I said, oh, okay, I'm just gonna say ceremony and move on in the lecture. And I go 3 sentences later, it says again that please don't skip that part, read that part. At that part, I'm like, okay, I have to go around like 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm looking for the book. Where is that book? So Shanti is going to read that little bit part for us, so that way we can understand what the ceremony was about. And I don't know why that Peter wanted us to read us, so we'll read us. Yeah, you can read.
The fact that Mercury had been chosen to surrender
No.
his body
I think you got to keep closer.
for the use of the Mahaguru had been communicated to his father as well as to the chief priest. And from his childhood, he had been carefully trained in view of his glorious destiny. Surya taking charge of his education, and the father cooperating in every way in his power. The day arrived when the first public appearance of the Mahaguru was to be made. He had come from Shambhala and his subtle body, and had taken possession of the body of Mercury. And a great procession started from the royal palace to the chief temple of the city. I'm going to read the whole thing. It's very
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah, sure.
In it walked on the right, under a golden canopy, the stately figure of the king. The jeweled canopy of the high priest glittered on the left, and between them was carried shoulder high, so that all might see, a golden chair in which sat the well-known figure of the king's second son. But what was there that caused a murmur? Murmur of surprise, of wonder as he passed along. Was that really the prince whom they had known from childhood? Why was he carried high as the center of the procession, while king and hierophant walked humbly beside him? What was this new stateliness, this unknown dignity, this gaze so piercing yet so tender, that swept across the crowd? Not thus had held himself, not thus had looked at them, the prince who had grown up among them. The procession swept on and entered the huge courtyard of the temple, crowded with people in the many-colored garments of festival days, when each wore a mantle of the color of his ruling planet. Down the sides of the steps which rose to the platform in front of the great door of the temple were ranged the priests in long white garments and rainbow-colored overrobes of silk. In the midst of the platform, an altar had been erected, and on it wood was piled, and fragrant gums and incense, but no smoke arose. For the pile, to the people's surprise, was unlit. The procession passed on to the foot of the steps, and there all halted, save the 3 central figures. They ascended the steps, the king and the hierophant placing themselves to the right and left of the altar, and the prince, who was the Mahaguru, in the center behind it. Then Surya, the hierophant, spoke to the priests and to the people, telling them that he who stood there behind the altar was no longer the prince they had known, but that he was the messenger from the Most High and from the sons of the fire, who dwelt in the far east, whence their forefathers had come forth. Then he had brought their word to the children, to which all yield reverence and obedience. And he bade them listen while the great messenger spake in their name. as the head of their faith, he humbly bade him welcome. Then over the listening throng rang the silver voice of the Mahaguru, and none there was who could not hear it, as though spoken to him alone. He told them that he had come from the sons of the fire, the lords of the flame, who dwelt in the sacred city of the White Island in far Shambhala. He brought them a revelation from them, a symbol which could ever keep them in their minds. He told them how the fire was the purest of all elements and the purifier of all things, and thereafter it should be for them the symbol of the holiest. This reminds me of the Hindu ceremonies. We always start with fire.
Yeah,
You know?
true.
That the fire was embodied in the sun, in the heavens, and burned, though hidden in the heart of man. It was heat, it was light, it was health and strength, and in it and by it all had life and motion. And much he told them of its deep meaning, and how in all things they should see the hidden presence of the fire. Then he lifted up his right hand, and behold, there shone in it a rod, as of lightning held in bondage, yet shooting out its flashes on every side. He pointed the rod to the east of the heavens, and cried some words around it, an unknown tongue, and the heavens became one sheet of flame, and the fire fell blazing down upon the altar. And a star shone out above his head, and seemed to bathe him in its radiance. And all the priests and the people fell upon their faces, and Surya and the king bowed down in homage at his feet. And the clouds of fragrant smoke from the altar veiled the three for a few moments from sight. Then, with his hand and upraised in blessing, the Mahaguru descended the steps, and he, with the king and Hierophant, returned with the procession to the palace whence they had come. And the people marveled greatly and rejoiced, because the gods of their forefathers had remembered them, and had sent them the word of peace. And they carried home the flowers which had rained down upon from them the sky when the fire had passed, and kept them in their shrines as precious heirlooms for their descendants. A considerable time in the city, going daily to the temple to instruct the priests. He taught them that fire and water were the purifiers of all else, and must never be polluted, and that even the water was purified by the fire. That all fire was the fire of the sun, and was in all things, and might be released as fire. That out of the fire and out of the water all things come. For the fire and the water were the two spirits, fire being life and water being form. The Mahaguru had round him a quite august assemblage of masters, and others less advanced. He left these to carry on his teaching when he departed. His departure was dramatic as his first preaching. The people were gathered to hear him. Possibly out of this arose the latter teaching of Osmad and Ahriman. There are passages which show that the double of Osmad was not originally an evil power, but rather matter, while Osmad was spirit. Oops. Sorry. The people were gathered together to hear him preach. as he was wont to do occasionally. And they knew not that it was for the last time. He stood as before on the great platform, but there was no altar. He preached, inculcating the duty of gaining knowledge and of practicing love, and bade them follow and obey Surya, whom he left in his place as teacher. And then he told them that he was going, and he blessed them. And lifting up his arms to the eastern sky, he called aloud, and out of the sky came down a whirling cloud of flame and enwrapped him as he stood. And then whirling still, it shot upwards and fled eastwards, and he was gone. Then the people fell on their faces and cried out that he was a god, and they exulted exceedingly that he had lived among them. But the king was very sad and mourned for his departure many days. And Mercury, who in his subtle body had ever remained near him at his service, returned with him to the holy ones and rested for a while in peace. After he had gone, star worship did not at once disappear, for the people regarded his teachings as a reform, not as a substitution, and still worshipped the moon and Venus and the constellations and the planets. But the fire was held sacred as the image, the emblem and the being of the sun. And the new religion rather enfolded the old one and replaced it. Gradually, the faith of the fire grew stronger and stronger. Star worship retreated from innate faith and took a very scientific form. Astral Persia of Mesopotamia, where it remained, the domagy there reached its zenith and scientifically guided human affairs, both public and private.
I think we can stop there.
Stop.
So in this 2-3 pages that we read, right, there's a lot that she has packed in. One aspect I really found that how the ceremonies were placed so much importance back in the old days, and which has really continued to this day in many religions, like the Catholic ceremonies or the Hindu ceremonies, and I believe there are some Zoroastrian ceremonies too. And in all these, there are the burning of the incense, the fire, the holy water, what we still call, they use the water to baptize, and in the Hindu culture, we use the fire and water too. For many ceremonies, there is no ceremony in Hindu culture I have seen without water and fire being used. And how these teachings come directly from the masters themselves and the lords themselves. And this has a very significant effect on our life and on our body and on our physical and astral and all subtler bodies too. So that's what I remember Sadhguru saying when I was reading that. I remembered what he said, that water has a lot of memory. Like what 70-80% of our body is water, and if you don't drink the right kind of water, then it can have negative effects on your physical body and also your astral, causal, or subtler bodies too. So one thing he mentioned was never drink water directly out of the tap. Take a water, leave it in a copper or a brass vessel. In India, that's where we used to store water. We used to have a big pot, brass pot. Moms or somebody, grandmothers used to get the water. The drinking water was never to be touched or brought from the well from who's outside the family. Always the family members, within the family members gets a pot of water, and it's stored for a few hours before it is consumed. Why? Because that brass vessel or something, it creates that kind of positivity. It tunes itself to the energies of the house, and then you consume it so that you are in sync. And some people, even today, they don't drink water outside. sit in their home. They carry their own water bottle. So these are small things that have been incorporated into our culture, and we think we don't pay much attention to that these days, right? But if you read this kind of stuff, you know that there is some reason to that, right? And the second aspect of how importance I found in that passage was the masters themselves, how they come in, give the message, and when the message is done, or they feel that they have done their job, they just leave as fast as they come. And it is just that people who are within that span of time, who are incarnated around that time, they have that right opportunity to make use of those energies that they are giving. Just the mere presence around them, it gives them a lot of boost to leave away or let go of their negativities and fine-tune their personalities to align with the right kind of energies and work for the cause. And sometimes I think we take these things for granted, but it is once in a thousand years opportunity that comes along, and how we fail to use that sometimes, right? So that I found was quite interesting, and points that we can pay attention to. Anybody has any points they want to add, raise your questions? No? Okay, can I go to the next slide? Yes, John.
In one of the books written by one of our members who passed some years ago, he claimed he was one of the, a disciple of one of the masters. Okay. And he found out that normally there will be an incarnation of action followed by incarnation of rest. Did you find that when you read through these lives, an incarnation of rest and followed by incarnation of action?
For that, if you're speaking at the very higher level, like the cosmos level?
No, for
individual level?
Lives of Ashion.
Yes. So what you can see here, if you see here, right, intervals between lives, this is the period of rest. And see how length of life. The length of life is 81 years. And then from 48,000 BC, then he's born, let's say here, which is more consecutive, right? Here, the 11th lifetime, you see the 11th lifetime, which is like he's alive for 74 years as a male in Persia. And the interval between lives is 601. That means after 601 years is the rest life. That means he's dwelling in his astral plane, his astral body or causal body or Devachan, what we call. He's resting there, and then the soul comes back to the 12th life. You don't mean that? Okay.
Yeah, actually, he mean the actual life itself. So he say there will be one life where he's incarnated and he would be doing lots of activity. And then the next life, he would rest. There's no activity in that life. That's just a normal living life. No activity to what evolution, right? And I think that's what he's trying to imply.
I mean, like,
yeah, so for example, if he were active in life number 10 and life number 11, he would take a rest, and then there would be a normal, normal evolution, just nothing happening.
no, this time is nothing happening time. Oh, in the life.
In the life
Oh,
itself, yes.
I don't think so. There is going to be any life where evolution is going to be zero.
Because this person was a man of action. That means he was a warrior, right?
Okay.
So in one incarnation, he was a soldier working for one of the masters, followed by another incarnation. The following incarnation, rest. That means
That means he's not
But-
doing the master's work.
no. He might be meditating, or he might be a priest, but not fighting.
Oh yeah. That
So I'm
that
just-
definitely is
I'm
happening.
just
Yeah, if
asking
you
whether
can,
saw something
yeah.
like that.
As you can see, if you go in a consecutive order, you see that he's not a warrior all the time. And also, he's some lifetimes he's a female, and sometimes he's born as a male. So whenever he's born as a male, he's like a warrior or a soldier, or as a priest who's not fighting. So all these keep circulating. But the evolution happens in variable of what life you are. Either you're a woman, or you're a man, or a warrior, or a teacher, or a priest. But the evolution of the soul keeps on going. But it might be not as a soldier or always on the go person. Sometimes he can be just a priest sitting at a temple and meditating most of the time. Yes, that does happen. Yeah. Yes, that's a good question. If you can see that this fifth root race and fourth root races, they kind of keep alternating, because based on where there is a necessity, and kind of it determines the your karma also. If there is a set of work that needs to be done, right, when he was in a fourth root race, in the 13th root race, which we are going to be, in the 13th life, fourth root race, which we are going to be looking at right now, he is born in Ireland. You see that Ireland at that point of time, which is like 27,000 years ago, it was mostly fourth root race people, and you cannot be born into a fifth root race out of nowhere. You need a fifth root race people to be born there. So what they do is, but they need his work over there. So he's going to be born in a fourth root race, but slowly he's going to work towards incorporating fifth root race in there. So that they might be the pioneers, getting the fifth root race set up there, kind of. So yes, that fourth root race, fifth root race, if you remember the solar system talk, I said that the root races are not cut off. Okay, May 6th, 2023, cut off of the fourth root race, kill everybody and start fifth root race. It doesn't work like that. There's going to be a lot of overlap, millions of years of overlap between the fourth and the fifth root race, because you're going to take people from the fourth root race, create the fifth root race people. Again, you make them take the fifth root race people and create the sixth root race people. The same happens within the sub-races too. You take one sub-race, create the next sub-race, take people from there, create the next sub-race, like that. So you'll see that. Okay, going to the 13th life. Okay, let's see what happens here. After the last lifetime being more very, eventful, directly under the Mahaguru. Now here he's born in Ireland, 27,500 years approximately ago, and he's in the fourth root race and the fifth sub race. Back then, there's no British Isles yet. That whole part was part of the European continent. That means there's no sea. You see here the English Channel, nothing is here. This is completely combined to this. So this is the place where Master Surya used to live. And the city itself, she says there was a big piece of land here, which kind of is submerged. So this is where the actual capital city used to be there. So, main Europe land, yes, completely. So the people over here are the branchlet of the fifth Atlantean subrace, from whose ranks had been selected those who were led into Asia by the Manu to become the ancestors of the Aryan race. So there was a branch of people within the fourth root race which had gone into forming the first subrace, the Aryan race, the fifth root race, and some people had come and settled in the extreme part or the west part of the European land, which cannot be called the British Island because it's not completely separated yet, but the current British Isles area. So Around this time, but there were a lot of other sub-races of people already inhabiting them, but these people got some fresh blood there, so they kind of came in with a little bit more culture, and they kind of organized, they were governing the people natives who were already living there, and they kind of established a system of government, so loosely to call, to organize work there. And among this was the office holders were Mars and Surya. They have superiority over the tribal people and kind of govern them. So in this lifetime, visions meaning clairvoyant visions were common among these races. Surya had such vision. The meeting of his wife through vision. Now a very interesting story happens here. I think I have time, quickly I'll mention it. So what happens was, Mars was married, but Surya, when he was 8 years old boy, it so happened that his happens such that one day he's sleeping, not sleeping, it's dreaming, not dreaming kind of state. He somehow ejects himself out of his body. He ejects his etheric double. He moves out of his physical body. Etheric double is like around 6 to 7 inches from our body, and it is always closely associated with the physical body. Once, to be able to separate this from your physical body and take this etheric double to faraway lands is a kind of a lot of training has to happen under a guru. For some reason, Surya, who is Surya? Okay. Lord Maitreya, I'll say with the term, Lord Maitreya, right? His name is Surya. So his soul name. What happens is, when he was 8 years old boy, he somehow makes that happen all of a sudden, and he goes to this part of the Gobi Desert or the Manoa, like where the White Island is, the Shambhala is, everything is there, right? So he somehow takes this etheric double all the way to there, and he's hovering over, like imagine the drone view, like that's how it is, like when you are traveling in your etheric double, etheric body or astral body, you are like flying around, you don't have a physical body. And he sees that there is this beautiful garden in some island, some area. He doesn't know which area, which land it is, nothing. And he can see that there is a big palace, and in that palace is a beautiful garden. And for this boy who is growing in Ireland, there was not much city that was set up by then. They had no idea of, imagine a country person coming into New York all of a sudden, how excited he is. He has never seen a building which is 2-storied long. He's always lived in a mud thatched hut, and he comes to New York, then just the glitter of it, the building, high-rise buildings, it's glamorous for him. So he sees some city like that. And then he sees this park, and there's this little girl who's bending over a fish pond, and she's looking at the fishes. And all of a sudden what happens, this little girl falls into the pond. And she falls into the pond, and she doesn't know swimming, and she's drowning. Now, being in his etheric body, he's very shaken by that little girl falling into the pond, and he wants to help. So he jumps into the pond, he pulls the girl out with great difficulty, and he brings her onto the shore. And then he's like, trying to talk to her, but he doesn't understand what she's saying. And she's trying to say something, and she doesn't understand what he's saying. But then they just make eye contact, and they remember each other's face. And by this time, he's woken up in his physical body. Where is his physical body? His physical body is in Ireland. He wakes up, and he's surprised to see that his clothes are dripping wet, right? His clothes are dripping wet, and his body has not moved an inch from his bed. But he remembers what happened over there, what he saw, the girl, everything he remembers. He runs to his parents, and he says, this is what happened. And he says, see, this is a proof I had gone there because my clothes are wet. I'm just sleeping in this room. That was the first incident. And it stayed in his memory for a long time. He didn't know who the girl was, what happened, nothing. And the second time, he's like a teenager. He couldn't forget that girl. He had I don't know what happened, but I want to go meet that girl. And he had no clue which part of the world was that too. So during his teenage years, he had learned a little bit chanting, little bit that and this from the priest, and now he's able to, like, forcefully, push out his etheric body and do astral travel, which was not under the guidance of any guru. He just learned it somewhere, and the teenage experiment mode, he thinks I can do it, and he starts doing it. And this time, he successfully goes there, meets the girl. He's like, by that time, the girl is also in her teenagers. Then she is like all excited to see this boy, and he meets the girl's mom and the dad, and they eat and they have some tea, and they are asking him, but he has no understanding of what they are talking, because the language is different, and he's trying to communicate something, and she's not able to understand. So anyway, with great difficulty, he learns few syllables. He stays with her like for a day or something. He learns few syllables, and he remembers that. But all of a sudden, he starts to feel very weak and drained, and next thing you know that he wakes up in his physical body back in Ireland. Now he wakes up in his physical body, but then he's completely drained his energy. He's very weak. Then his parents and the high priest say that you're not supposed to do this because you're damaging your physical body. You're not trained to do this. But in his youth and courage, that hot blood, he's like, no, I want to meet the girl. I want to meet the girl. I want to learn that process, whatever is happening. And then 1 year later, I think he gets an intuition that the girl is sad. So then what happens, he again does this astral travel. He goes there, but he's not able to separate his etheric body properly, and he couldn't go meet her. Even though he goes there, she's not able to see him because his etheric double is not completely in. So she's not able to understand. But then by that time, he knows a little bit of mesmerization. That mesmerization is something like communicating, like I think something very strongly, I don't have to open my mouth. I want say something to Shanti, I can just imprint it onto Shanti's brain. Okay, communicate this. So he communicates to her saying that around the same time, her mom is getting her married to somebody else. So he communicates to her saying that, wait for 1 year, I'm going to come looking for you, right? So he communicates that to her, he comes back. Now, it so happens some traveler comes across in Ireland who has been to this place, Manoa, Gobi Island, and then he comes there and he talks to them, he learns a little bit of his language, and he promises to take him back there because he knows the way back. And whenever he comes back, he writes the detailed map of the city. He tries to remember everything. He lays out the detailed map of the city. And he shows the map of the city. He's like, do you remember where this place is in this world? And he's like, oh, this is the White Island. I know the place. And he takes him back there. He takes 1 year for him to reach there. He marries the girl. And the whole city is like surprised that some guy came here in astral body, and then now he comes looking for the prince, and they marry him off, and they have a son, and then he comes back to Ireland. So this was quite interesting for me because the way it used to happen back then, which was very common, which I go talking about this somewhere outside, they're going to call me crazy. But this is, this was very common back then because the evolved souls had this kind of dreams and visions, and they were doing astral body travel very frequently. And she also gives a good example of what was happening if you want to read the points, first meeting, second meeting, and third meeting, like how it was mesmerization and the separation of the etheric body, astral travel, everything else. Now when they come back, they have a son, Electra, and later Mizar. This was a plan of the Manu. Now see, even that part, getting him the ability to astral travel, look at the girl, go fall in love with her, then go get married and bring her back, everything was plan of the Manu. Why? Because he wanted to she was an Aryan race, so he wanted to bring that blood back in here and cultivate the people here too. So Electra's son, Alkene, now they have the son, Alkene, right? I mean, Alkene will be a grandson. His grandson always listened to the stories from his grandfather, Surya, of that city. a beautiful city which is there on the Gobi Sea, and it is the highly evolved, that, this and all. And he always keeps dreaming of going back there. So when he was of the appropriate age, he pleads with his parents that he wants to go back there, and he does go back there. But once he goes back there, he has the strange feeling that he has been here before. So he kind of walks in the street and he knows, oh, in the next turn there is this building. Oh, in the next turn there is this building. And then he's mesmerized himself that, how is this happening? Because imagine, this was like 27,500 years ago. 70,000 years back, he was the one who walked all those streets and kind of magnetized that area, and he was part of the building that city and everything, like, thousands of years ago. And how he goes back there and he kind of remembers everything, and he comes back and tells all the stories to his grandmother about the city that she came from, and everybody is very excited to see the boy, and everything happens. What happens after that? Electra took over the chief priest post from Surya, followed by Alkene. The mountain where Surya preached a temple is currently known as Slivenamon in Tipperary, but the capital city is submerged during the Sidonia's sinking. That's what I said. Currently, this is I tried to pull up the Google image. So that's the mountain where actually Surya was a priest, and he was like giving his sermons and everything. He was conducting all the rituals there. But the actual capital was a little bit far away here, which is the land is submerged right now. So that's where it stands. Did we skip your life?
Yes, 10 life.
10th life? Okay. Sorry. Maybe we can go back to that after this one. Okay. What happens in the 19th? I think I have 2 more lives to do, 19th and 20th, and that's, 19th and 20th. Okay, where is this 19th life? Finally, they come to America. In 22,600 BC, born as a female in Mississippi. Length of the life was 84 years, root race was 4th, and subrace was 2nd. Now, what is happening here is you see the same souls. Mars is the king of the great Clavaltila kingdom, and Toyotli. And Alkene was the daughter of Mizar and Helios. Presence of a sacred temple with a large dome resembling a Byzantine architect. So what happens is now Alkene was born as a girl. An interesting part is we have a picture for this lifetime too. So this was Alkene in his 22,000 years ago. And they give a very good detail about how this image was created. So when Leadbeater and Annie Besant was looking clairvoyantly, they were able to see everything. But they thought, okay, let us create an image, a photographic plate of what the vision they were having. So it seems there was one of the society members who had the vision. So they kind of imported, he was kind of having a clairvoyant abilities. So imparted what they were seeing as an image into his brain, and he was able to create the image exactly. So that's how it worked, because he was an artist. So because they could write, but they were not good artists, Annie Besant and Blavatsky. So what they were seeing, they saw it so in detail that a proper image was created in their brain, and then they transferred this image from their brain to the artist's brain, and he was able to create this image. There are 10 or 15 such images which has been created, which I thought was really cool. Okay. Okay. One of the main things that happens here is a consecration. This is more of a rituals that was part of the 4th root race back then. You can see that the 5th root race is already very well established in the Gobi Sea, Manoa, all that area. But slowly you can see how now Ireland was incorporated with the 5th root race. Now Americas is next incorporated with 5th root race. So slowly they are intermixing, bringing the 5th root race to all parts of the land. Now the presence of a sacred temple with a large dome resembling a Byzantine architecture it is all the sacramental and festal ceremonies. It is where all the sacramental and festal ceremonies were conducted. Consecration of the 6-month-old baby happens here by Mercury, Ursus, Venus, and Brihat, also astrally by Mahaguru. When Alkene was 6-month-old baby, there was a ceremony that was happening, and what happened was when he was 6 months old, there used to be a ceremony of creating a guardian angel. So that's why I think that's where they say the name of guardian angel came from. All the kids will have one guardian angel, and this is a ceremony to tie that angel to the baby. And that's what the Mahaguru did himself for Alkene, that he tied one of the nature spirits, a guardian angel, to the baby, so she's always watching the baby. The temple was attached to a great central temple far away in Atlantis, over which Surya presided as high priest, assisted by Jupiter and Saturn. Now, Atlantis is still an continent. Where is the continent? Atlantis, where now we call the Bermuda Triangle, right? That area, Florida, Mexico, or the Gulf of Mexico, there is this Bermuda Triangle area. The Atlantis island was there. So Surya is still living there. The Atlantis people are still there at that point of time. It's not completely submerged. And the main temple is still there. But these small temples existed in the mainland of Americas. Sirius was the son of Brihat, fell in love with Alkene. Heracles, brother of Alkene, becomes friends of Sirius, and they remain close friends. Now Vajra, son of Mars, was planned to wed Alkene, but she insisted on marrying Sirius again. Now, beautiful wedding ceremony was blessed by the Mahaguru himself. In this family alone, we find a considerable gathering of the Theosophical clan. For in addition to the 9 children of Helios, there were 16 born to Sirius and Alkene. Also, kids of Mars, Vajra, Heracles constituted the whole Theos team. So this is one of the interesting things that happened in the 19th lifetime, where many of the TS members incarnated together. Now, this lifetime was quite eventful. Sirius and Alkene's son Demeter married Elsa. Now, a quick story again here. Now, Demeter and Elsa kind of lived in the outskirts of the city. Now, and they had rented a house to somebody else, and they refused to pay rent to them. And why? Because they said that that house is haunted, and we are not going to live there. Now, Demeter kept going there. They shifted themselves over there, and they felt that that place was haunted, and they couldn't live over there. Now, Sirius is on the way to save Heracles and Vajra. Now, Vajra is the son of the king. Heracles is the brother. Now, they have been captured by a tribe. Now, Sirius is on the way to go and rescue them. He stops by his son Dimitri's house, and he says, and then Dimitri is all worried because his house is haunted. He says, oh, this has to be taken care of. He sends words to Alkene, his wife, come and take care of the kids. The kids are having some problem, and he goes off to the war to save the Vajra, and Vajra is HPB, Heracles is Anipizan, and Leadbeater is going to save them, right? Now, Alkene comes to the son's house, and she says, oh, I do feel some presence of some negative energies here. Why don't I spend the night here? So let me be myself, and I'll chant some mantras to get rid and clean the space. So she says there, but the black magic which was present over there is too strong. So during the night time, there is this small, like a worm kind of thing here. Okay. A large worm appears 4 feet in length, cigar-shaped, covered with hair and bad odor, clung to her feet and tried to suck the energy out of her. So it's kind of claws onto her neck and kind of is seeping the life energies out of it, because this was kind of a bad and black magic. The black magic possesses Dimitri, and he attacks the mom too. So Dimitri hears his mom screaming. He comes there, but he is attacked by the black magic, and he's not able to do anything. He starts attacking the mom too. Alkene at this point is feeling very sick, and all she can think of is she's trying to chant something. She's not able to. And then she calls upon her husband, Sirius, who's fighting thousands of miles away. He comes in his astral body, kind of kills the bugs, saves the sun, all the things happen. But it leaves a deep impact on the physical body of Alkene. That means the site where the worm had attacked and tried to suck the life out of it, the hair was completely turned white. And her astral, her energies were completely destroyed so much that she felt weak, and it took many months for her to recover her physical stamina and body. And they went and asked about the same thing to Mercury. Mercury is Master KH. By this time, she's a mom, and she kind of understands the clairvoyance and all these. She has some psychic powers. She sees at it and she's like, oh, you shouldn't have done that, because in the fourth root race, that place was used for black magic and seance and things like that. And the black magic, and that, I kind of stress on this point, is this kind of explains to the level with which the black magic and the technologies and powers which the masters had given to the fourth root people were misused. And this was the reason why Atlantis, Posidonius were sunk, because all those black magic had to be removed away, because they gave those energies, psychic powers, everything for the betterment of the people so that they can use it for spiritual growth. But what did they do? They started using it for black magic, attracting people. And in that place specifically, the black magic was used to invoke these scorpion-like worms, give them human blood, and make them do stuff which they are not supposed to be doing. They used to damage the astral bodies, causal bodies of human beings, and they say that death was much a blessing compared to getting attacked by these evil creatures, because they used to damage your subtler bodies too, which the masters would have to work very hard to replace, and they were doing this on a larger scale. That's the whole reason that the Atlantis area was sunken away. So that was part of what was happening there. Now, the other significant event that happened here was Sirius was about 60 years old, made a family trip to Yucatan City to meet Surya. Now, Yucatan City is like in Mexico, right? I think that city still has that, what do you call that? Chichen Itza, we saw those Mayan pyramids. Yeah, that area, that whole area, I think that was all part of the fourth root race structures, buildings, temples. I mean, it is sunken completely. Yeah, it is not submerged, yes. No, it was all over the place, but it was mainly there. The rest of the places, I think they killed that complete population. They were they were killed, so that none of those knowledge was transferred to next generation. They killed them, and because they couldn't completely get rid of the land, submerge the whole. They needed land for the other people to incarnate too, right? They killed people on the mainland. I think islands, which were islands, kind of submerged. To kingdom of
Toyokari in the life 19. Before this life,
uh-huh.
said they live in the kingdom of Toyokari.
Toyokatli?
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
you find it that still exists?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think these were mostly fourth root race. I think I might have read about it in the book, The Solar System, but there definitely are descendants of these people still existing, definitely, but I don't think so they are existing as a kingdom anymore. It's just a descendants. Okay, so they go to the Yucatan City to meet Surya, who was traveling from the Atlantis island there. So on the way back, they found the merchants sick due to drinking poison water, and Mercury magnetized them and cured them. You can see how the soul of Master KH is developing over the lifetime. Along with that, if you have been paying attention, Mercury, Surya, Mars are highly evolving. They are taking more and more leadership roles, and they are becoming more and more psychic. The ceremony started, only few people were allowed to attend. Surya was sitting on the throne, and few selected people had special salutation for him, which is still used today at the White Lodge, which I found was very interesting. Because even today, that form of salutation is like a namaste. You do probably like this, or some people, Muslims do like this, and there might be some other ways other religion follow. But she says that the few selected people who had been initiated probably by then, they knew that kind of salutation, and they were doing that to Surya. And what let Peter and Annie Besant say is they still see this Shweta Rishi Sangha, which is in the Himalayas right now. In the ceremonies, they have seen some people still use the same salutation. Helios and Sirius passed away but kept in touch with Alchemy in the astral plane. And by the way, this is very common I see in going forward, the rest of their lifetimes, that people who die and who are in the astral plane were easily able to communicate with people who are alive. Like what we communicate, you and me, we don't need a body. Like you think about it, then you can understand what I'm trying to say, and you think about something I know, I'm able to understand the same. Vajra visits the city of Alchemy in 2,500 years as head priest from Atlantis. You can see here again HPB, she's already heading the priest. When you see the soul which has taken birth as a king or a head priest or what was the other thing? Mostly these two, you can see that they are evolving spiritually too. Only people who are evolved to that states are starting to take as a king position or a head priest position. So these two positions, when you see that they are reaching slowly from year to year, you see that they are just first born as warriors, then they are born as kids to the kings, like a second, third generation they start. Now you can, going forward, you can see they are already coming to the higher positions. That means they are making significant progress in their development. Okay, the last life for today. The daughter of, this is the 20th life, 21 years, 700 years ago, as a female in Chittagong. Where is Chittagong? Chittagong is here in Bangladesh. If you see, this is the Bay of Bengal, this is India, this is Burma, Myanmar, this is Bhutan, this is the east part of India, Nepal, Himalayas, and it's here. And this was a very short lifetime, 17 years, but very significant for the soul of J. Krishnamurti. I'm going to tell you why. It was a very happy childhood, and as part of that culture, horoscopes was very important, played a different part in their daily life. As soon as a child is born, they look at the child's birth stars, chart, everything, and the life is kind of predicted. So it was found that Alchemy's life was very significant one, because she was going to give birth to a very gifted or evolved being. So to give birth to the child, this child, as soon as she is born, she is raised very strictly. She is given a certain set of education. She's not let to mingle with people who are of bad energies, or she's always protected, given the right kind of food, hygiene, everything. She's cared for very, very carefully. And she was married to Saturn at the age of 15, and a year later, Surya, Lord Maitreya, is born. Now, by this time, you can see that when they talk about a gifted child, Surya or Lord Maitreya is already evolving to a very higher state. So that's why a lot of preparation is happening so that he gets the right kind of body. You can see this in Buddhist culture too, because when they reincarnate, they go looking for this baby. If you have watched the Dalai Lama documentaries, you can see that when a priest dies and reincarnates, they go looking for the body, and they bring the child and give him a certain kind of education and space to grow, so that their physical body, mental body achieves the maximum and is not hindered much. Alchemy was quite sensitive and impressionable. She had a dream of the gifted baby to come to her. she was aware then the soul attached to her in the womb. Like whenever the baby is growing in the mother's womb, until the end of first trimester, the soul doesn't come into the womb. It comes, goes back, because the soul is trying to get used to the nature of the mom, new body, everything. So this keeps happening now and then. There is one point after the first trimester, the soul completely comes into the womb and kind of stays with the body and grows with the body, or get used to the body. So she kind of was clairvoyant enough to understand when that process had actually happened. She cared for the baby very much and loved the baby deeply. Now what happened was, when 1 year later, when she was like, she married at 16, 15, had baby at 16. 1 year later, when she was 17, they used to live in like a wooden houses, like if you imagine Japanese houses which are built of wood like that. So their construction used to be like that. So there was a multi-layer house structure, and she had left the baby with one of the servant or the nurses to care for, and she had gone out to get something. And she was from a well-off family. There was a lot of servants and everything. But what happened was, one of the servants was carrying a fish bowl, the goldfish bowl, and the lens on the glass of that fish bowl was like a concave shape. And when she was going up in the room, somebody calls her to get something. So she keeps the fish bowl where it's not supposed to be, and she goes to attend to that work. And the sun rays passes to that fish bowl. When there is a focused sunlight passing through the glass, it can catch fire. The wood structure catches fire like that. So the house starts burning up. So immediately the whole structure is wood, and it just bursts into flames. But the baby is in the first floor, and the nurse, she panics and she starts running down. But before that, she forgot that the baby is in the crib. But when around the same time, Alchemy comes in and she asks, "Where's my baby?" Everybody is in a panic mode trying to off the fire. Then they realize everybody forgot the baby. Now the stairs is already burning up, but she, as a mom, she couldn't let go of the baby, right? She runs in the burning flame, goes up, she wraps the baby around in a blanket, she hugs the baby, and she, in the blazing fire, tries to dash down the stairs. And in the process, the wrapped baby is saved, but her whole body is caught fire. So she comes down rolling as a ball of fire, but she rolls the baby out, and the baby is saved, but she completely burns down, and within the 1 hour she dies. Now, for this extraordinary sacrifice she made to save the babies, Surya, who is an incarnation wherein there was his growth was happening, Lord Maitreya's growth was happening, and if he had died, then a lot of time had to be wasted to find the right kind of environment again for him to take birth. But in spite of, instead of giving, importance for her own life, she sacrificed a life for the baby. So at that point, it seems Lord Maitreya made a promise to her that as you saved me today from this burning fire, I'm going to save you for the eternity. I'm always going to be saving you. And Annie Besant says, which he has been doing since then to this lifetime, that he's always taken care of by Lord Maitreya. And if you have read the life history, not biography of J. Krishnamurti, it's Lord Maitreya who used to come use his body, give the message. And for Lord Maitreya to come and use any body is not easy, because he's very, very highly evolved being. It's like running a Windows 13 on a Windows 8 system, which is not compatible. But you have to boot the system, upgrade the system to highest level so that they become compatible and start working. It's the same, our energies, our bodies, because it's going to be too painful for them to come down to this level, because they are very highly evolved beings, and it is very difficult for them to come down and give their message. But J. Krishnamurti did make that effort to live that kind of life, wherein he made himself available for the masters, Lord Maitreya, to come and give his message. And many theosophical literature says that many masters can come and give the message, but for Lord Maitreya to come, it is a totally different level. And his message, like Krishnamurti's message, which he taught was totally different. If you see from society what we teach, everything, he's very advanced. And they say 2040, 2050 onwards, the generation who come later, they are going to consume him like anything, because then they are going to be evolved so much to understand what he's actually saying, to the extent, because you need to be highly evolved to even understand what he's trying to say, because there's not much context. He talks and you have to have that kind of intellect to dissect what he's saying and try to eat it up. So that's kind of the story and bondings which we have seen over the period of many lifetimes. I think we have a picture for this lifetime. So that she says that was a hairstyle they used to do, and those were like diamond clasp. All the ladies used to have diamond clasp like that to the hair. And she says when she died, her hair was catching in fire and she could see the diamonds falling off because her hair was completely burning. It's a very dramatic picture they try to draw. But sorry, you want to? I missed your reading part. I know. Yeah, I'll stop the share.
Okay, thank you very much, Vidya. So we're going to meet again in 2 weeks, and then that should wrap up the series. And I hope to see everyone back in 2 weeks. All right, thank you. For those online, hope you see you in 2 weeks as well. Bye. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.